Hello everyone and welcome to the next video on the Ordinary Boy Boxing channel. My name is Sean and I'm here today with my dog Rupert. He told me that he wanted to be a part of this video, so he will no doubt jump in and out during the contents of this video. So this is Rupert. I just thought I'd introduce everyone to him. So in today's video I'm going to be asking the question, what on earth is going on with Conor Benn? Now, I've been waiting quite a while to make this video. I was waiting because every time I saw an interview, usually with Hearn, he was saying, oh, Conor Benn is going to come out with some information soon, and was basically hinting at the fact that it could change our mind. So I just didn't want to make this video until we knew the facts, or knew more at least, because obviously I didn't want it to be outdated. I've given it this long. I mean, don't get me wrong, he could still come out today or tomorrow with something that completely changes everything, but I've waited long enough now and I want to make this video. So, full disclosure, I'm not in any way a doctor, or I know much about medicine or anything like that, so I have got notes with me, just because I want to be as factual as I can, and there's so many things being said back and forth. I just kind of try to nail down what we do know. So Eubank versus Benn was supposed to happen on October the 8th, 2022 at the O2 Arena. I was due to go there on the Friday for the weigh-in, and obviously I think we heard on the Thursday that the fight wasn't happening, so it never ever happened. Enter Rupert. We now know that he tested positive on the 23rd of September. That's when the positive result came back. We didn't know until the Wednesday before the fight, so that was into October. It's also come out recently that he then tested positive on the 25th of July. That only came out yesterday, I think it was, so he's tested positive twice. The fight was called off on the Thursday. The British Border Control on the Wednesday released a statement saying that they were not allowed, they were prohibiting this fight to go ahead for the good of boxing. It was unclear what was actually going to happen. There was talks of them going to another commission. There was talks of the fight getting moved to a few weeks later. There was quite a lot of rumours. In the end, Eddie Hearn and Callie Sowland, the promoters of Eubank and Benn, did a press conference where they announced that the fight was not going to happen, or it's going to be rescheduled, and they said that it was their decision and they could have done the fight if they wanted to. So Ben has been charged by the British Border Control with misconduct, which is apparently separate to the doping allegations. So he's been charged with using Clomefine, which is usually a masking agent. So it's usually found in the system when someone's been on a steroid cycle, and it kind of masks the steroid use. It's trace amounts. Eddie Hearn's been very eager to tell us that it's only trace amounts. Yesterday he gave up his British boxing licence before the hearing for the misconduct could happen, so he's gave that up. He was found, the results were found by VADA, not UKAD. So VADA is the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association. They've found it twice. UKAD didn't find any. And I think that's all the facts as we know. Conor Benn is saying that the first result, which was in July, came back and they thought it was a mistake, so they started to investigate it. A second result came back positive, and they now believe, I'm hearing contamination, and I'm hearing that he's been spiked. Right, so they're the facts as we know them so far, as of today anyway, as I'm posting this video. So initial thoughts, when he popped for it, it was obviously I was surprised as everyone else, but my initial thoughts were that it wasn't a mistake. Usually when boxers have tested positive for a substance, they will say it was in a supplement that they didn't know, that they were taking it for a medical reason but hadn't been declared. This Clomefine, from what I know, again, I'm not a medical expert, is a female fertility drug. So that's not something you could have accidentally taken. It's taken for two reasons. It's taken, obviously, if you're a female, to help with fertility, or it's taken to cover up a cycle of steroid use. Now, Eddie Hearn has been defending Conor Benn's corner and saying that Conor Benn will release a statement, and you may well see why Eddie Hearn is defending him so much. That statement got released today, unless there's something else more to come, and he's saying that it's contamination or he's been spiked. Is that seriously the reason that you're going to give? So contamination, I find highly unlikely. VADA are a well-recognised organisation. They are the gold standard. So you're saying it got contaminated twice? Because it's two different tests, and we're still yet to see B samples, so they're all contaminated. Is that what we're saying? And spiked. Okay. So two things with that. Firstly, you got spiked on both occasions with trace amounts. So if you're getting spiked, they only found trace amounts. Okay. So if you're getting spiked, it would be a lot bigger than trace amounts, surely, on two separate dates. And secondly, you were about to go into a massive fight. You're a big, high-profile fighter. You've got a famous trainer. You've got a famous dad. None of them were able to catch whoever spiked your drink. And who was that? And why did they do it? And I'm not really buying any of that. He went for his. He was supposed to have a hearing for misconduct. We still don't know what that misconduct is. I'll be interested to see what that is. I was waiting to hear what that was, but obviously it's not come out yet, and I wanted to make this video. And he gave up his British Boxing Border Control licence, or it had lapsed and he didn't renew it. I think it's one or the other. Obviously, it's difficult because we're hearing so many different things during this whole period. So he's gave that up. I don't want to judge him too much on that because we don't know what the misconduct is. If it's something they're saying it's completely different from the doping allegations, and he's finding the whole process unfair with the British Boxing Board of Control, so he doesn't want to hold their licence anymore. Don't really know what to think of that. I've got my own thoughts on the British Boxing Board of Control, which to be honest, are getting away with things scot-free at the moment, but we'll get to that. When the fight was made, obviously Eubank was coming down to a weight that he'd never been at before. When he did a video on the Saturday to prove that he was going to make the weight, because obviously people were saying that he wouldn't make the weight. He did make the weight. He looked awful. So I'm glad that, in retrospect, kind of glad that he didn't fight at that weight, because it just wouldn't have been fair. And Conor Benn was obviously coming up. That's also a red flag to me. Did his team or him worry that he wasn't going to be able to get up to that weight successfully and keep his power, so used whatever they used so he could do that and be successful? I'm not sure. Maybe that's not a coincidence that he was coming into this fight a lot heavier and also got caught for a masking agent for performing arts and drugs. What Conor Benn could do, but he's not, is take a hair test. Now this hair test, what it would do is it would show if there's been any long-term use of steroids or of this Clomefine. If he's sure he's innocent, he's not done that, and I don't think he's going to do that. The B sample we've heard nothing about. It's down to Conor Benn's team to get the results of that B sample. They haven't done that yet. I have a feeling that Eddie Hearn's hope, at least, was that this will all die down, let it fizzle out, and then come back next year. I don't think any of them expected the uproar that there's been. I mean, Eddie Hearn was so in the clouds about this. that he still thought that fight could happen when it was going to happen. And obviously the uproar from the public and the boxing community meant that didn't happen, which is a good thing. So yeah, it's just such an awful situation for boxing, and I think unless something new comes out, it's highly probable that Conor Benn has used something. If it comes out that he's innocent, I'll make another video, I'll do an apology, but that's my view, that I don't see how he's innocent at this point. I really, really don't. And it's such a shame for everyone involved, especially for Chris Eubank Jr., who'd got down to that weight, drained himself. And then with the history, I mean, it surprises me as well with the history of his dad and Nigel Benn, for Conor Benn, Nigel Benn's son, to be using performance-enhancing drugs. The other argument is, because I don't think there's much argument to say that that's what was going on. Is he that naive that he thought it was okay and he thinks everyone does it, and maybe they do and they're not getting caught, so he felt justified there? Or did he think Chris Eubank Jr. was doing it? I really don't know. One of his arguments is that he signed up for VADA. It's a voluntary anti-doping association. He signed up for it, so why would he cheat and then sign up to VADA? Boxers in the past have done the same. Boxers in the past have done the same. It's not... These boxers don't sign up to it always because they're clean. They sign up to it because, A, there's a lot of pressure. Chris Eubank Jr. will say, I'm signing up to it, so you need to sign up to it. And also they think that they can cheat it. There was trace amount, so if he was on it, maybe if that test had been done a little bit later, it wouldn't have found anything. Obviously his other defence is that the UKAD test that he had, the UKAD test didn't show anything up, and the VADA did, so the UKAD tests clear him. And Eddie Hearn made a big deal about that the British Border Control only recognise UKAD, they don't recognise VADA, so the fight should still go ahead. That's such a morally bankrupt way of thinking. It really is. The British Border Control have done one thing right, which is they in this situation at least, are recognising VADA and are asking for them results. The reason why, now I'm not sure of dates because they've not all been publicised, but one of the reasons why the UKAD test could have cleared him and VADA didn't is because, so the VADA test he failed, the 25th of July and the end of September. I'm not aware of any UKAD tests that were took between those two periods. So if there isn't, then there's no, it's not going to be there. If they usually, I mean, the little I know about the UKAD tests is that they're took just before and just after a fight. Obviously by that time, anything that's in your system is completely out of it by then. I think they're starting to bring in more spot testing, but at the moment I think that's how it is. And they're definitely not as stringent as VADA are for testing. And then I don't know, do they even test for clomifene? And if they do, is there a limit? Do they let trace amounts? And then I'm not sure. Getting on to the British Boxing Board of Control, I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee before I get started on the British Boxing Board of Control. Now, Eddie Hearn is a promoter, okay? He's promoting Conor Benn. He is he's a businessman. He's trying to make money for himself and his fighters and put on shows, okay? Conor Benn is a fighter. He wants to fight and he wants to get paid. The same with Chris Eubank Jr. That's what they're about, okay? The British Boxing Board of Control's job is to oversee British boxing, make sure rules are being kept, make sure things like this aren't happening. Now, they were informed that Conor Benn tested positive for clomifene on the 25th of July, okay? No, sorry, on the 25th of September. Oh, we don't know if they were... we don't know if they were told on the 25th of July about the first failed test. We know they were on the second, so we'll just stick with that one for now. On the 23rd of September, they were notified of that failed test, okay? Now, from one interview, obviously there's so many things being told, but from one interview I heard that Eddie Hearn was told by them, I think, previously, I'm not sure when, that because of that failed test, they weren't happy with the Conor Benn Eubank fight going ahead. Now, they didn't publicise that they were prohibiting this fight until the Wednesday of the fight. This was open workouts. They knew all the way up. They were watching the promotion. They were watching the build-up. They knew that fight week was happening. They said nothing until this story was leaked to a newspaper. When that story was leaked to a newspaper, suddenly the British Boxing Board of Control released a statement to say, we're not letting this fight happen. Why did they not release this statement weeks ago? Now, I'm not going to forgive anyone in this situation, but you can kind of... You can see where Eddie Hearn's coming from, you can see where Conor Benn's coming from, you can see where the camps are coming from. I can't see what the British Boxing Board of Control are doing. This is their job, to stop these things happening. They would have been notified about this result the same time as Conor Benn's team and Chris Eubank's team. They knew at exactly the same time, but they released nothing until the Wednesday of the fight, which cost everyone a hell of a lot of money. It disappointed the public, people that had bought tickets, that had bought travel, that had bought hotels, that were going down to that fight. If you want to blame anyone, obviously there's a lot of people blame this situation, and I can see why people blame Conor Benn, and if he has done it, definitely blame him. But the British Boxing Board of Control are not being mentioned much here, and they knew this information weeks before. They could have stopped it getting to this point. They could have stopped all of you getting excited for the fight. They could have stopped the people watching from buying hotels, tickets, and wasting all that money. But they didn't say anything, and it really baffles to me why. And they've not really said anything about it since either. Not about how they acted. So that absolutely baffles me from the British Boxing Board of Control. It really, really does. It was almost like, I mean, it's one of two things really, isn't it? So they knew about it on the 23rd of September, right? So there's two reasons why they wouldn't have said anything till the Wednesday. The first that I can see, the first reason would have been that they wanted the fight to go. They were going to let the fight go ahead because they saw it was coming. So there's, oh, we've told Eddie Hearn, but if he wants the fight to go ahead, the fight's going to go ahead. Or the second reason was that it was done out of spite. They wanted to leave it at the last moment, so I don't know, Eddie Hearn's matchroom could look bad, that Conor Benn could look bad. I don't know, but they're liable for. They should be liable for the expense people have paid and the money that's been lost. They should be as liable, well, they should be in part liable, just as Conor Benn should be liable if he indeed has used performing enhancing drugs. Eddie Hearn's got a lot of flack. Eddie Hearn's like a politician. You ask him a question and he'll dance his way around the answers. The thing he's kept saying is Conor Benn's going to say something, he's going to come out to the media soon, and then you may think differently and you'll see why I'm backing him. And is this it? Is this what he's coming out with? That he's been contaminated or spiked without anything else, without any proof, without who it is, without why, without when? Is that it? I mean, if that is it, then Conor Benn will not fight for a good while. So the after effects of this is that obviously, usually if he'd kept his licence, he would have then more than likely been given a suspension of a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it would have been. He's relinquished that title, that licence. So I suspect, and this is just based on if nothing else comes out, which it well could, but I suspect that what will happen now is they'll leave it till next year, and then Conor Benn will get a licence in Gibraltar or a different country and continue fighting, with them still declaring that he was innocent and he was contaminated or spiked, and Conor Benn gets to continue his career next year. That's what I think the path is. They also, Eddie Hearn still mentions about the Conor Benn Eubank fight going ahead. I can't see how that goes ahead now. And don't get me wrong, I'd love it to. I was really disappointed. I mean, I was going to go to the weigh-in. I've only been to a few weigh-ins. I couldn't get tickets for the fight, but I was going to go for the weigh-in. So I'm disappointed that fight's not going to happen, but I can't see how it would. So Eubank now will not stretch himself down to £157. No way will he. And then that wouldn't be fair on Conor Benn anyway to go up, because they're not meeting in the middle at all then. The controversy over the drug situation, if it's not cleared up properly, there'll be such an uproar about the fight happening that it will just fall on its arse again. So I can't see that fight happening. It was a good idea. You know, when their dads fought twice, they were brilliant fights, and it was a brilliant rivalry. I was only little, I don't remember it, but I've watched them since, and I've heard from my dad about, you know, the build up to those fights and the fights themselves. So for their sons to get into the ring was really interesting. I was really invested. It was the fight this year that I was looking forward to the most, actually. But it's dead in the water, and I don't see it happening again, unfortunately. I really don't. Eubank now, that's one good positive actually. Chris Eubank, throughout it, his stock's definitely risen. He's not the most likeable person, nor was his dad. It's kind of just their personality, I think. But how he's handled it has actually been really good, and I think his stock's risen. It's funny because throughout the whole build-up, Eubank was the bad guy, and Ben was the good guy, and then it switched obviously with the situation that happened. There's one other thing I just want to mention quickly, because I know there's been a lot of confusion online about it. So on the Wednesday, I remember Conor Benn came out and got interviewed just before his public workout, and he said that he'd been in touch with Chris Eubank when the results came out, and they'd had a chat. Chris Eubank then got interviewed and said, "I've not spoken to Conor Benn today." Because the interviewer when he spoke to Chris Eubank Jr. said, Conor Benn says you spoke today, and he said, "I've not spoke today." He never said today. The results came out obviously in the 23rd of September. They would have spoke then. I think that's what Conor Benn was on about. There was so much confusion during that whole event that things were getting mislaid and said differently and things like that. So yeah, and for Conor Benn, I really don't know what I mean, like I said, I imagine they'll go to a different commission. But this is not going to go away. And again, I think Eddie Hearn's head's in the clouds that it is. It won't. Conor Benn, unless he comes up with a really good reason, and being contaminated and spiked, full stop, is not a good reason, his name's going to be in the mud. And people are not going to want to watch him fight. And commissions are not going to want to have him. Events aren't going to want to have him. So the best thing Conor Benn could do, if he has indeed cheated, is own up to it. Own up to it, give your explanation of why you did it, take your ban, come back and try and restart your career again. He's still young, so he can still do that. That's my thoughts on what the hell is going on with Conor Benn. We will see if any more information comes out. If it does, I might do a little follow-up video to add that on, because I want to kind of, have as much as we know in the video, but I'm limited at the moment because other things are still yet to come out. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this whole situation. Do you believe Conor Benn? And what do you think should happen next in this whole situation? What do you think he should do? Remember to like and also subscribe, and thank you for watching.